I want to acknowledge the land that we are on right now. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of Coast Salish peoples, whose ancestors stewarded life in these mountains, valleys, waterways, and shorelines since time immemorial. May we nurture our relationships with each other and live gently together as guests on this land. This is the Mother's Day proclamation written by Julia Ward Howe in 1870. Arise, then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands will not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We, the women of one country, will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil of the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after his own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and humanity, I earnestly ask that a general Congress of women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace. Hear, hear. This is a piece I wrote. It's called Mother's Day. Some mamas are birthing, while some are burying their child. This white blizzard of greed has brought us here. It will bring you to your knees. And if you've never known your kneecaps, you will quickly discover how intricately they are linked in with the lining of your heart. How you can't celebrate new life without feeling the grief. I refuse to be blinded by the white anymore. I refuse to see babies emerge into patient, loving, anticipatory, medical, holy bubbles and not recognize the system that helped birth them, that brought them here. How insidious, how unquestioned and righteous it is. So when we celebrate Mother's Day, what and whom are we celebrating? One day, I, a white girl, sat flipping through an Oprah magazine. I paused at a page and stayed there. It showed one of Oprah's favorite paintings in her home. One I can hardly describe. It was a mama hugging her child for the last time, just before being ripped from one another in the name of slavery, torn away by the white man, sustained by white greed. I will never look away from that image. A snapshot of the very still point of caustic moves that obliterates the holy bond. It's what this place was built on. There's nothing left but trauma. Of course we have war. We willingly add more trauma, continuing to tear the holy bonds, not acknowledging them at all. Happy Mother's Day. May it be a day where we remember the holiest of bonds must be remembered every day. Before the bullet hits the young black child, Officer repents. He has a mother. Don't you know about mothers and the holiest of bonds? Didn't you come from a mother? Recognize Mother's Day. Honors the reasons we are here. War, including on our streets with our police, is the antithesis of this. War. What is war? Do you know pain? Have you seen what vaginas do during labor and birth? They stretch and tear and bleed, sometimes until nothing is left. I have heard women proclaim, "I want to die," and we encourage them to go into that pain in the name of birthing what is holy. War? What is war? Do you know what you are destroying? Mother's Day is about the holy bond. It is every day. Don't slap us in the face. Put your gun down. Show us grace.
So I was looking at this proclamation and I thought we might want to update the language a little bit. So this is my attempt at that. Arise then, sisters and brothers, mothers, fathers and children, rise up all people of this day. Rise up to say, as humans, we must spare all people of all races and nations from the terror of warfare and oppression. Rise up to say unequivocally that war is an unavoidable evil for which we must all take responsibility because it is in our name and with our taxes that our government wages war. We are involved militarily in Afghanistan, in Iraq, who knows where next. Our nation supports wars in Palestine and in other places. We sell weapons to the aggressors. Increasingly, our domestic police forces are becoming militarized. We must understand that the United States is a war nation. We're the biggest war nation. We lead the world in military spending. We, Veterans for Peace, we have these gorgeous signs that show you the terrible numbers. We spend more than a bunch of other people combined. We spend more than 50% every day of our tax income on war. It takes away from our natural stuff. Oh, I went off of my speed.
You go, Alice, you go. You go. Sorry.
Many people, fearing terrorism maybe, believe that military spending is necessary for national security. Let us reach out and educate one another. War never makes us safer. Ultimately, we must relinquish our fears and face harder truths. Wars kill many civilians as well as soldiers. War destroys families. War leaves people maimed, crippled, and homeless. War gives us unthinkable atrocities, mass deaths, child soldiers, rape as a tool of war, waves of refugees fleeing their homes. War is economically and ecologically unaffordable and unsustainable. We have much important work to do in these difficult times. We cannot continue to deny the ways in which war and violence underlie many of our national problems.
Why I'm happy and honored and blessed to be here is because peace matters. It matters to me as an individual, as I bump around through my life, as a mom, as a worker, as a community member, to seek peace in myself and to try and foster peace in the world around me. But it also matters to me as a political priority. And in America, that doesn't seem to be represented by either of the major two parties. It's really hard to be an active anti-war person in the political realm as it is on either side of the major two corporate-run parties. 3 years ago, I became a mom. That's crazy. So for all you mothers, you're amazing people. I feel blessed to be part of the crew of mothers. And it occurs to me, much like the poem that you shared earlier, Lisa, the link between the creative power of being a mother, that you make a person and you grow it in here, and then you have to find the courage to get them out into the world, and it's a mean world sometimes, and you kind of don't want to get them out into it, but you got to have some faith and some hope and some courage that you can do it, and you can bring them out in this world and nurture them to be a force that you can feel good about. Sorry. So in that vein, I guess I would encourage you all to embrace the idea that one of my favorite quotes comes from a musical. I'm a song and dance kind of gal, and I love musicals, including Rent. And one of my favorite quotes is, the opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation. So I invite you to go out and create what you want in the world, be what you want in the world. That's where our power is. We can do it.
Today I'm speaking as an immigrant and a daughter of an immigrant. And I want to say how much I appreciate my mom for all the sacrifice that she's made. And sometimes I feel like it was too much of a sacrifice. And I want to say thank you to all the other immigrant moms that sacrificed so much for their families today. American soldiers and citizens have made great sacrifices for the U.S. wars abroad. With full understanding of this, we should also acknowledge that African Americans, people of color, and immigrants in the U.S. have made tremendous sacrifices for these wars. Indigenous people, African Americans, and immigrants have in disproportionate numbers been placed on the front lines of U.S. wars, while their already marginalized communities suffered from casualties of war, mental or physical injuries, and loss of lives. People of color and immigrants have sometimes bravely enlisted to prove their loyalty to the U.S., even though the hope of finally belonging and treatment as equals were unfulfilled. For many of us, we come here to escape conflict, economic or environmental hardship, or violence many times instigated by the U.S. military or military-backed U.S. corporations. However, for vast majority of folks, the hardships and violence do not stop when we get to these shores. They continue to suffer in an ongoing cycle of violence, discrimination, over-policing, and criminalization. If they are better off than in their own countries, then it's not by much. And for some of us who survive living half a life as an immigrant in the U.S., wonder where we belong in this world. Borders are only salt in the wound. Borders are imaginary lines through which people feel its oppression, drawn in the earth to control people and goods in order to maintain wealth and power in the U.S. It is unjust and cruel to keep people out after wealthy countries and their companies have created conflict and environmental crises back in their homes. Refugees, immigrants, and people, all people, should be able to move freely. Opening imperialistic borders is another part of stopping wars and bringing world peace. Why does America insist on waging war and violence abroad? And how do we end it? America's wars abroad are its deadliest export. It is an expression of the dysfunction in American culture, which is in denial that the wealth of this country is wholly based on the genocide of indigenous people of Turtle Island, exploitation of natural resources, slavery of African American on plantations in the South, and exploitation of immigrants to build industrial infrastructure and commercial wealth in the U.S. The American psyche that which denies this tremendous wrong leads inevitably to what we have now. White supremacy, a punitive-based justice system, cruel systems and policies that disproportionately discriminate against people of color. This is exported abroad, waging wars on non-white countries as if we have a right to their resources, land, and people. The U.S. perpetuates violence here and abroad, justifying it by otherizing and dehumanizing non-white people. We all need to reconcile with our history in the U.S. and acknowledge that this is a white supremacist country. Before we can heal and address the export of our white supremacy and military abroad. America's wars are racist wars. Be in struggle and solidarity with our sisters and brothers in Black Lives Matter and people of color, because they are most heavily targeted by militarized police and state violence. The leaders of Black Lives Matter are leading all of us in peaceful resistance against violence and educating us on the vast machinery fueled by neoliberalism, heteropatriarchal capitalism, militarism, and greed. Do everything you can to support Black Lives Matter this Mother's Day for peace in our country and abroad.
I'm going to start off actually with a poem that my granddaughter wrote. I'm a mother of one. I have 4 grandchildren. My oldest granddaughter who wrote this was 12 at the time. She's 23 now and a teacher. And it's called How Many? How many rumors and warnings until it all begins? How many moments of unease until the nation sins? How many regular meals until each family runs low on food? How many warming fires until their homes are as cold as their mood? How many alarming sirens until hope is hopelessly shaken? How many mothers' cries until their sons are not taken? How many lonely children until their fathers don't say goodbye? How many brave young men until none has willing to die? How many mourning families until someone's life is preserved? How many near-death incidents until rest is deserved? How many dark invasions until the cities are torn down? How many stabs of pain until the killer's smile becomes a frown? How many bloody fields until the fighting is all done? How many gruesome battles until the end has begun? How many soldiers' death until a white flag is risen? How many shouts of protest until somebody will listen? How many bombs thrown until hatred will decease? How many more days of war until we are at peace? The first original Mother's Day message was a passionate demand for disarmament and peace. That was in 1870, and here we are in 2017, and the message is unchanged. U.S. wars and conflicts raging in the Middle East have already cost $5 trillion and counting. The human cost, 1.3 million and counting. 1.3 million dead, and that doesn't even cover the wounded. The White House has requested another $54 billion for the Pentagon, which, by the way, has never been audited. We have no idea where the money goes, how much it gets, and how it's being spent. Today we have the power to make a real difference for real changes comes only from the people. It's time to take action. The tools needed are your phone and your voice. These take action cards have right on them to call your representatives. Call your representatives and say, no more increases to Pentagon spending.